Mr. Darryl David.
Madam Deputy Speaker, national symbols of a country represent the collective identity of the nation, the values that a nation subscribes to, and the aspirations of its people. For example, the 5 stars on our national flag represent the ideals of Singapore, and our national anthem captures the enduring hope and spirit of Singaporeans for progress. Since the Singapore Arms and Flags and National Anthem Act, or SAFNA, was adopted, other symbols, such as the lion head symbol and Vanda Miss Joachim, which are closely associated with the Singapore identity, have also been listed as national symbols. And although these symbols have come to represent us, they are not accorded the same level of protection from misuse as our state crest, national flag, and national anthem, because these additional symbols are not covered under SAFNA. The introduction of the National Symbols Bill to replace SAFNA is thus timely and appropriate, and will also help to provide greater flexibility and clarity to the use of national symbols. Notwithstanding my support for the bill, I wish to seek for clarifications concerning how the national symbols will be regarded and managed after the bill has been introduced. First of all, the issue of flexibility. Under the proposed National Symbols Bill, 7 additional national symbols like the Presidential Standard, Presidential Coat of Arms, Presidential Seal, National Pledge, Public Seal, Lion's Head Symbol, and National Flower will be accorded with protection status alongside the 3 national symbols that are originally protected under SAFNA. Some symbols like the Presidential Standard, Presidential Coat of Arms, Presidential Seal, and Public Seal would largely not be very commonly used and displayed by the public, unlike other symbols like the national flag, national anthem, national pledge, or even the lion head symbol or national flower. These latter 5 symbols are those that the public would most be familiar with, and are also likely to be the ones that are most used in our everyday life, especially during national occasions. I hope that the government will consider allowing members of the public more flexibility in using them, so that these symbols can be part of our everyday lives and are close to our hearts, instead of being abstract concepts or displays that we occasionally see. Greater flexibility to access and display these symbols will foster familiarity, but still keeping that sense of respect, while having the sense of national pride and collective ownership of these symbols that are essentially part of our Singapore identity. Madam Deputy Speaker, in the past, we had amended the rules for when the national flag could be flown. In 2007, the National Day period was extended from 1st July to 30th September. And in 2020, the rule was amended to allow the flag to be displayed from April to June 2020 as a mark of solidarity during the COVID-19 crisis. I would like to propose for the government to consider extending the period when the national flag could be flown without a flagpole and night illumination from 1st January to 31st December every year. Or, from a different perspective, to abolish having a fixed period when the flag can be flown. If the aim of extending the period from July to September in the past was to allow for a greater display of patriotism, then why not allow Singaporeans and residents to display their love and patriotism for the country all year round? Now, the issue of clarity. The disrespecting of national symbols in some cases, such as the willful and intentional defacing of the flag, for example, is quite clear, and such cases must be dealt with accordingly. However, as more symbols get designated as national symbols and come under the proposed new laws, it would be good if the government could provide some guidance as to how the symbols should be used respectfully and just what constitutes an offence regarding the treatment of a national symbol under the new law. The guidelines of use must be explicitly communicated to prevent members of the public and merchants from contravening the use of those symbols. This was mentioned earlier, I believe, by my parliamentary colleague, Mr. Yip. And at present, I do believe that several companies and merchants have used the lion's head symbol on their product packaging to publicize that products are made in Singapore. Now, will such usage of the lion head symbol be allowed under the National Symbols Bill? If yes, would there be an application process to use national symbols on product packaging and publicity collateral, such as company brochures and banners? Would there be an office set up to process such applications and assess the merits of using national symbols on commercial platforms? Of course, it would be impossible to capture everything under the law or to have prescriptive guidance for all possible use of the symbols. Many of us would agree that exercising common sense and good judgment in how we treat our national symbols would suffice on most occasions when the symbols are used. However, there could be some instances where it might not be clear as to just what constitutes disrespecting a national symbol. For example, if you search for Singapore National Anthem on electric guitar on the internet, some of us might be tempted to do that right now on our devices, you will find a mellow, reggae-inspired version of Majulah Singapura on YouTube. Personally, I did not find that remix or that version of our national anthem offensive or disrespectful. In fact, the comments on the remix were all largely positive. However, would such a remix or interpretation of our national anthem be considered disrespectful under the new law and lead to a financial penalty or some measures taken against the artist? Similarly, if parts of or even the entire Singapore pledge were fused into a performance piece, would that be okay? Or would the performer be taken to task if he or she did not get prior clearance from the authorities? There was also the case of a migrant worker who loved Singapore so much that he got the lion head symbol tattooed on the back of his neck. Would this be allowed under the new proposed laws? Again, I understand that one cannot have detailed prescriptions for everything, but it would be good if the government could provide some clear guidance in this area. Madam Deputy Speaker, our national symbols are quintessential to the Singapore identity. Many Singaporeans and even foreigners have come to associate the national symbols as synonymous with Singapore and the Singapore brand and what Singapore stands for. The national symbols are also cultural symbols, each capturing a unique portion of Singapore's history and the aspirations of our country and people. Singaporeans should thus be more acquainted with the history of the symbols and what those symbols stand for. One of the approaches to increase Singaporeans' awareness of the symbols is to allow them to come into contact with these symbols more freely and more spontaneously in their everyday lives, and to conduct more public education on what the symbols mean, safeguards, of course, notwithstanding. I end my speech in firm support of the bill. Thank you, ma'am.